Hi friends, welcome back to 5 Minute Modern. My name is Cindy, and today we're taking a look at the poignant wartime drawings of British artist Henry Moore. Moore is best known as a sculptor of often monumental works that merge abstraction and figuration. It's precisely this ambiguity that formed the basis for writer John Berger's famous criticism of Moore. For Berger, the distortions in Moore's figures served neither to give them greater emotional resonance as in expressionism, nor to provide any greater structural analysis as in cubism. Berger seems to find Moore's contortions meaningless, and ultimately describes the artist's work as searching for, but failing to find, a real essence. Now, admittedly, I actually like Moore's sculptures, but I still find Berger's criticism to be correct. One sees in these works deformities which certainly can be aesthetically pleasing, but feel cold and superficial. The kind of agreeable, yet removed and unaffecting works tailor-made for large public spaces, which is where Moore's sculptures are so often displayed. Perhaps that's why I was so surprised when I first encountered Moore's wartime drawings. During the Blitz in 1940, Nazi bombers rained destruction on London. When Nazi planes appeared in the sky, all the people of London, including Henry Moore, took shelter in their nearest tube station. Seeing everyone in the shelter was a poignant experience for Moore, who had been searching for a way to express the humanity of his present moment. He was especially struck by the way that a crowd of strangers became suddenly intimate with one another as they huddled underground. Moore's own flat and studio were destroyed during the early weeks of the Blitz, adding personal resonance to the collective trauma and leaving him without the studio space necessary for sculpting. Unable to sculpt, Moore began making drawings of the tube shelters, initially just as a private project to revitalize his work with this newfound subject. However, after a few weeks, Moore showed his sketches to his friend Kenneth Clark, the director of Britain's National Gallery and the chairman of the War Artists Advisory Committee. The Advisory Committee was a government agency which employed artists to create propaganda for the war effort, though Clark himself suggested that the agency was devoted more towards expressing what it felt like to be at war. Artists like Paul Nash and Graham Sutherland were among those employed by Clark's agency, both producing paintings of the devastation wrought by the Blitz. With the National Gallery's permanent collection moved to Wales to put it out of the path of Nazi bombers, works by Clark's artists were displayed in the museum instead, boosting morale for the public, while also serving Clark's secondary aim of promoting Britain's taste for works by its leading modernists. Upon seeing Moore's drawings, Clark hired him as well, ultimately commissioning 31 drawings of the tube shelters. Where people are notably absent in the wartime works of Sutherland and Nash, they dominate Moore's drawings. To borrow from art critic Michael Glover, Moore's drawings show us humanity in the raw, people shredded by grief and fear. I think Glover's choice of the word shredded is particularly apt here. Moore used materials like chalk and wax crayon to create scratchy lines, which do make his subjects look as though they have been run through a shredder. Alive, but certainly not unscathed. The faces of Moore's subjects are also stripped of detail, as if to indicate that Moore is uninterested in capturing a specific person's experience. The grief and fear in these drawings is collective. It doesn't matter who each person is, in the sense that every person in London is in the same place experiencing the same thing. Moore's subject could have been any one of them. Although Moore retains his insistence on distorting figures as he migrated from sculpting to drawing, any distortions in the wartime drawings feel not only well-motivated, but trenchant. Rather than putting these works at a distance, Moore's contortions bring them closer to us, practically to the point that they crawl under your skin. The wartime drawings would be an outlier in Moore's career overall. After the war ended, he permanently settled in a farmhouse 30 miles outside London, where he'd evacuated after his home was destroyed. As Moore returned to sculpting, far removed from the urban mass of humanity which had inspired his drawings, he once again began to work on large-scale, semi-abstract forms, weighed down by their heavy materials, but light on meaning. Thanks so much for watching this one. As always, I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.